The city was barely awake when the little girl tugged his coat. Jack Chan looked down. 7 years old. Backpack too big. Hands shaking. His bodyguards froze. His driver went rigid. Even the morning birds seemed to hold their breath. "Mister," she whispered, "can you walk me to school? I don't feel safe anymore." No one asked Jack Chan for safety. People begged him for forgiveness, for mercy, for time they wouldn't get, but never this. He knelt slowly. "Why don't you feel safe, kid?" She raised her finger and pointed behind him. A man leaned against a lamppost half a block away. Hands in pockets. Smile sharp and wrong. Watching. Jack's jaw tightened. He knew that look. Predator. Trafficker. Someone even the underworld refused to touch. "My mom says not to talk to strangers," the girl whispered. "But he already knows my name." Jack stood. In that moment, something changed on that street. Something everyone felt but couldn't explain. He took her hand. "Walk with me." Phones appeared in windows. Curtains shifted. Neighbors watched in disbelief as the most feared man in the city walked a 7-year-old girl down the sidewalk. The man at the lamppost followed. Jack didn't look back. He pulled out his phone. "Lock down the perimeter around the elementary school. Find out who's been watching kids in this neighborhood." The girl squeezed his hand tighter. "Are you mad?" "No," Jack said. "I'm paying attention." Halfway there, she stopped walking. He's not alone. Another man stood near the school gates. Younger. Cleaner. Watching the doors. Jack felt the shape of the problem click into place. This wasn't curiosity. This was a system. "When we get there, go straight inside. Don't talk to anyone. Don't turn around." "Are you going to hurt them?" The question hit him harder than any threat ever had. "No," Jack said after a pause. "I'm going to make sure they never scare you again." They reached the school. Parents stared. Teachers went silent. The girl smiled for the first time in weeks before disappearing inside. What Jack Chan did next in broad daylight on that quiet street started a war that brought the entire city to its knees and exposed a darkness no one saw coming. If you're enjoying this story, like this video, click subscribe, comment on the name of the country you're watching from, and also stay with me until the end, because the truth behind that little girl's courage and the mafia boss's decision will leave you breathless. Now, let's get started. Her name was Stella Martinez. 7 years old. Born in the heart of the city's forgotten neighborhoods, where children learned to walk home quickly and mothers worked nights just to keep the lights on, where rent was always late and hope came in small, fragile doses. Stella lived with her mother, Amanda, in a cramped apartment above Rosie's laundromat on Fletcher Street. Her father had walked out 3 years earlier. The kind of man who left without explanation and never looked back, leaving behind nothing but empty promises and unpaid bills. Amanda was 31 but looked older. Exhausted eyes, calloused hands, a body worn down by double shifts as a hospital cleaner. She worked nights because night shifts paid an extra $1.50 an hour, and that $1.50 meant Stella could have breakfast before school. She loved Stella with a fierceness that bordered on desperation. But love doesn't stop monsters from hunting. For 6 weeks, Stella had been telling her mother about the man. How he waited near their building every morning. How he followed her down Fletcher Street toward school. How he knew her name even though she'd never spoken to him, never even made eye contact. "He always smiles at me, Mama," Stella had whispered one night, pushing away her mac and cheese. "But his smile makes my stomach hurt." Amanda had called the police twice. Officer Brennan took notes, nodded sympathetically, and explained that without evidence of actual contact or explicit threats, they couldn't open an investigation. "Children have active imaginations, ma'am," he said, clicking his pen with bureaucratic finality. "Sometimes they misinterpret friendly gestures from adults in the neighborhood." The school counselor, Ms. Reeves, was equally dismissive. "Perhaps Stella is processing abandonment issues from her father leaving. Perhaps she needs more consistent therapy." Perhaps you're projecting your own anxieties onto her, Ms. Martinez. But Stella knew what she saw. The man wasn't friendly. He wasn't some harmless neighbor saying good morning. He was hunting. And every morning, the hunt got bolder. Yesterday, he'd crossed the street, walked on her side, stayed 10 feet behind her the entire way. This morning, terrified and alone because Amanda had overslept after a brutal shift, Stella had seen the black sedan, seen the man everyone feared, and made a choice that would change everything. She'd asked a monster to protect her from another monster. And somehow, impossibly, he said yes. 3 nights before Stella tugged Jack Chan's coat, she sat at their tiny kitchen table picking at cold spaghetti while her mother swayed on her feet. Amanda had just finished her second double shift in 3 days. 16 hours cleaning hospital floors, scrubbing toilets, emptying biohazard bins. Her uniform still smelled like industrial bleach and something worse underneath. "Mama," Stella whispered. He was there again today. Amanda's eyes were already half closed. "Who, baby?" "The man. The one who smiles wrong." Amanda forced herself to focus. "Did he touch you?" "No." "Did he say anything bad?" "He said, 'Good morning, Stella.'" "But Mama, I never told him my name." Amanda's blood went cold. But her body was so tired, so impossibly tired. She reached across the table and took Stella's small hand. "Tomorrow. I promise I'll walk you to school tomorrow, okay? We'll talk to Principal Dawson together." Stella nodded, wanting desperately to believe her. But when morning came, Amanda's alarm didn't go off. Or maybe it did and she slept through it, her body finally demanding the rest she'd been denying it for months. By the time she jolted awake, it was 8:15. School started at 8:30. She stumbled to Stella's room. Empty. On the kitchen table, a note in crayon. "It's okay, Mama. I can walk by myself. I love you." Amanda's hands shook as she grabbed her phone, called the school office. "This is Amanda Martinez. Can you check if my daughter Stella arrived safely?" "One moment, please." Typing sounds. "Yes, Ms. Martinez." Stella checked in at 8:27. Amanda exhaled. But the relief was temporary, hollow. Because she knew what she'd done. She'd promised her daughter safety and delivered another morning of fear. It wasn't the first time. 6 weeks ago, Stella had first mentioned the man. How he stood near their building every morning. How he smiled at her with too many teeth. Amanda had called the police that same day. Officer Brennan arrived 3 hours later. Nice enough. Took notes. Asked the standard questions. "Has this individual made physical contact with your daughter?" "No, but..." "Has he made any explicit threats or inappropriate comments?" "He knows her name, and she never." "Ma'am, I understand your concern. But without evidence of actual contact or threatening behavior, there's not much we can do. Children sometimes misinterpret friendly gestures from adults in the neighborhood. Could be he's just a regular commuter who happens to walk the same route. But she's scared. Then walk her to school yourself." He said it kindly, but the message was clear. This is a you problem, not a police problem. The school counselor, Ms. Reeves, was worse. She sat behind her desk with her degrees framed on the wall and her empathy voice activated. "Stella's father left, 3 years ago? It's possible she's manifesting anxiety through this phantom threat. Seeking attention. Creating danger where there isn't any so that you'll prioritize her over your work. My daughter doesn't lie." "I'm not saying she's lying, Ms. Martinez. I'm saying she's 7. And 7-year-olds process trauma in complex ways. But Stella wasn't processing trauma. She was surviving it. Because every morning, the man got bolder. First just watching. Then smiling. Then greeting her by name. Yesterday, he'd crossed the street and walked behind her for 3 blocks. And this morning, when Stella stepped outside and saw him waiting, saw that smile that made her stomach hurt, she also saw something else. A black sedan. A man in an expensive coat. A man other adults avoided. She didn't know his name. Didn't know what he did. only knew that he scared the people who should have protected her. So she made a choice that terrified and relieved her in equal measure. She walked up to the monster everyone feared and asked for help. Because sometimes, when the system fails, a 7-year-old has to save herself. They walked 3 blocks to Westfield Elementary, and the city held its breath. Jack Chan's hand swallowed Stella's completely. His grip was firm but careful, like he was holding something precious and fragile. Behind them, his bodyguards followed at a distance, 2 men in dark suits who kept their hands near their waists and their eyes on every shadow. Phones appeared in windows. Mrs. Chen from the corner store pressed her face against the glass, phone already recording. The barber stopped mid-cut to stare. Curtains shifted up and down Fletcher Street as neighbors woke to an impossible sight. The most feared man in the city holding a 7-year-old's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Across the street, the man from the lamppost followed. Hands still in his pockets. Smile gone now, replaced by something colder. Calculating. Stella squeezed Jack's hand tighter. "Are you a bad man?" she asked suddenly. "My mom says not to talk to strangers." Jack glanced down at her. "I'm someone who pays attention when others don't. Will they leave me alone now? They won't get the chance to bother you again." Jack pulled out his phone without breaking stride. His voice dropped to barely a whisper, but the words carried weight. "Lock down the perimeter. Find out who's been watching kids in this neighborhood. I want names by noon." On the other end, his lieutenant Marcus didn't ask questions. "Understood, boss." They turned the corner onto School Street. Ahead, Westfield Elementary's chain-link fence came into view. Parents were dropping off their children, normal morning routines, coffee cups, and rushed goodbyes. Then they saw Jack. A mother froze mid-hug with her son. A father's hand went protectively to his daughter's shoulder. Conversations died. Even the crossing guard, Mrs. Palmer, who'd worked this corner for 15 years, forgot to blow her whistle. Near the school gates, a second man stood watching. Younger than the first. Cleaner. Button-down shirt and khakis, clipboard in hand like he belonged there. But his eyes tracked the children too carefully, lingered too long. Jack's jaw tightened. 2 of them. Coordinated. This wasn't random. Principal Dawson emerged from the front entrance, her face a mixture of recognition and terror. She knew exactly who Jack Chan was. Everyone did. She stood on the steps, uncertain whether to call the police or pretend she didn't see him. Jack knelt when they reached the gates, bringing himself eye level with Stella once more. "Go straight inside," he said quietly. "Don't talk to anyone. Don't look back." Stella nodded. Then, without warning, she wrapped her small arms around his neck and hugged him. Jack went rigid. His bodyguards tensed. Principal Dawson's hand moved toward her phone. But Jack's arms came up slowly, carefully, and hugged her back. "Thank you for paying attention," Stella whispered. Then she let go and ran toward the school entrance, backpack bouncing, disappearing through the doors into the safety of classrooms and teachers and children who didn't know how close the monsters had gotten. Jack stood. His eyes found the second man near the gates. For 3 seconds, they locked eyes. Jack didn't blink. Didn't move. Just looked at him with the kind of stare that asked a single question. "Do you know what you just became?" The man's clipboard slipped from his hands. He turned and walked away fast, then faster, until he was almost running down the opposite street. Jack pulled out his phone again. "Marcus. 2 targets. First one's still tailing us. Second one just fled east on School Street. Get photos of both. I want their names, addresses, associates, and every place they've been in the last month. By sunset." "Already on it, boss. We've got eyes on both." Jack's men melted into the morning crowd, phones raised, cameras clicking. The first stalker didn't notice until it was too late. His face captured from 3 angles. His license plate photographed. His shadow now belonged to someone else. Jack turned and walked back to his sedan. Behind him, parents whispered urgently. Principal Dawson finally pulled out her phone but didn't dial. Teachers crowded the windows on the second floor. And up and down Fletcher Street, in every apartment and shop and corner where neighbors had watched, the same question spread like wildfire. Did Jack Chan just walk a little girl to school? By the time his sedan pulled away, the answer was already becoming legend. Amanda opened her apartment door the next morning and froze. Groceries. Stacked waist-high against the wall. Fresh produce, milk, bread, boxes of pasta, canned goods, everything they'd been rationing for weeks. Beside them, a plain manila envelope. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside, a cashier's check for 6 months' rent made out to their landlord. Beneath it, her medical bills from Stella's emergency room visit last spring, the one that had put them $3,000 in debt. Every page stamped in red ink, paid in full. No note. No explanation. No name. Amanda didn't need one. The whole neighborhood had been talking since yesterday morning. About Jack Chan. About Stella. About the walk that stopped traffic. She pressed her palm against the wall to steady herself, terrified and grateful in equal measure. Because she knew what accepting this meant. She knew the price of a mafia boss's generosity, even when it came without conditions. But Stella was safe. For the first time in 6 weeks, her daughter was safe. And that was worth any debt Amanda couldn't yet see. Across the city, in an office that didn't officially exist, Marcus dropped 2 files on Jack's desk. Derek Voss, he said, tapping the first photo. 34. 3 prior arrests for loitering near elementary schools. 2 dismissed on technicalities. 1 plea deal to misdemeanor trespassing. Currently on probation. Jack studied the face. The same man from the lamppost. And the other one? Tyler Reed. 27. Clean record on paper. But my sources say he's a known associate of the West Side trafficking ring. Does recruitment. Identifies vulnerable targets. Vulnerable, Jack repeated, the word bitter in his mouth. Marcus opened a 3rd folder, this one thick with photographs and surveillance reports. Boss, it's bigger than we thought. There are 6 more like Stella. Different neighborhoods, same pattern. Single mothers, night shift workers, kids who walk to school alone. Someone's been building a list. Jack's hands flattened on the desk. Show me. Marcus spread the photos. 6 children. Ages 6 to 9. Each one with a surveillance log tracking their routines, their guardian schedules, their vulnerabilities mapped like targets on a grid. This isn't random, Jack said quietly. This is a system. Yeah. And we just kicked the hornet's nest. That afternoon, Derek Voss made his last mistake. He waited near the crosswalk outside Westfield Elementary, same spot as always, like yesterday's warning meant nothing. Like Jack Chan's stare was just theater. When Stella emerged with a group of children at 3:15, Voss stepped off the curb. Started across the street toward her. He made it 3 steps. Mr. Rosario from the bakery appeared in his path, arms crossed, flowers still dusting his apron. Wrong direction, friend. Voss tried to step around him. Mrs. Chin blocked him from the other side. Then Miguel from the auto shop. Then the bodega owner. Then the mailman. I'm just walking, Voss said, voice tight with barely controlled rage. Then walk somewhere else, Mr. Rosario said. Voss tried to push through. Someone, nobody would say who, tripped him. He went down hard on the pavement, phone clattering away. A police car turned the corner 30 seconds later, lights already flashing. Officer Brennan stepped out, followed by Detective Sarah Chin, who Amanda had never met but who looked at Voss with recognition and disgust. Derek Voss, Chin said. We received an anonymous tip. With photos. And a very detailed timeline of your activities over the past 6 weeks. They cuffed him right there on the sidewalk while children watched and Stella stood safely behind Mrs. Chen's protective wall of neighbors. Voss vanished into the back of the patrol car. Into custody. Into the system he'd slipped through twice before. But Tyler Reed was already gone. Apartment empty. Phone disconnected. vanished into the wind like smoke. That evening, Jack sat at the head of a long table in a room where deals were made and territory was divided. His inner circle watched him carefully. These men had followed him through gang wars and federal investigations and hostile takeovers. They'd signed up for organized crime, not whatever this was becoming. "This isn't about territory anymore," Jack said, breaking the silence. "This is about hunting predators." A few men shifted uncomfortably. Tony Greco cleared his throat. "Boss, with respect, this brings heat we don't need. The cops are all ready. Anyone who wants out can leave now," Jack interrupted. "No consequences. No questions. This isn't what you signed up for, I understand that." The room went quiet. Jack waited, watching each face. No one stood. No one moved. "Then we do this right," Jack said. "No violence unless they strike first. We gather evidence. We protect witnesses. We work through the system, not around it. And if the system fails," he paused, "we make sure it doesn't fail twice." Marcus nodded slowly. "What do you need?" "Everything we have on Tyler Reed. Every known associate. Every place he's ever been. And I want surveillance on those 6 children starting tonight." "Already done, boss." Jack looked around the table at men who'd chosen to stay, who'd chosen this impossible thing over the comfortable violence they knew. "Then we start hunting," he said. 3 days later, the news broke at dawn. 3 children missing. Emma Rodriguez, 8 years old, last seen leaving her elementary school in Riverside. Lucas Bennett, 6, vanished from a playground in Oakwood. Maya Foster, 9, disappeared walking home from after-school tutoring in Westmont. All between ages 6 and 9. All from single-parent households. All last seen near their schools in working-class neighborhoods where people worked too hard to notice shadows until the shadows became monsters. The police had no leads. No witnesses. No surveillance footage. Just 3 empty beds and parents who couldn't stop screaming. That night, an envelope slid under Jack's office door. He was alone, reviewing Marcus's surveillance reports, when he heard the soft whisper of paper on hardwood. By the time he reached the door, the hallway was empty. Inside the envelope, photographs. The first showed Stella, laughing on the playground, surrounded by other children. Safe. Protected. Alive. Jack turned it over. Written on the back in red ink that looked too much like blood, "You saved one. We took 3. His hands went cold. The second photograph showed 3 faces he didn't recognize. Emma. Lucas. Maya. Each one circled in the same red ink. The message beneath: "For every child you protect, we take another. This city is bigger than you." For the first time in decades, Jack's hands trembled. Not from fear. He'd stopped being afraid of death 20 years ago. This was something worse. Something he'd spent his entire criminal career avoiding. Responsibility. Marcus found him 10 minutes later, still staring at the photographs. "Boss, this isn't our fight," Marcus said quietly. "We can protect Stella. Put men on her family. Keep them safe without declaring war on an entire trafficking network." Jack couldn't stop looking at Maya Foster's face. 9 years old. Honor roll student. Wanted to be a veterinarian. Now she was a message written in red ink. "It became our fight the moment they made it one," Jack said. "You know what this means. Going against them. They're connected to people we can't touch. Politicians. Judges. Cops. They've been operating for years because they're protected. Then we unprotect them." "Boss, get the car." Jack walked into the 5th precinct at midnight. Detective Sarah Chen was still at her desk, running on her 4th cup of coffee and 0 leads. She'd been investigating Jack Chan for 3 years, building cases that never quite stuck, chasing a ghost who always stayed one step ahead. She looked up when his shadow fell across her desk. Her hand moved instinctively toward her weapon. Jack placed a thick folder in front of her. "Everything I have on the network. Names, patterns, connections. Locations where they scout. How they identify targets. The front companies they use." Chin stared at the folder like it might explode. Why would I trust information from you? Because 3 children are missing and your department has no leads. He slid the photographs across her desk. Emma, Lucas, Maya, each one circled in red. And, because they're threatening to take more. Chin picked up the photos, read the message on the back. Her jaw tightened. If I use this, I'll have to explain where it came from. Then don't explain. Just find them. And if this is some elaborate setup? If you're using me to eliminate competition or settle a score. Jack met her eyes. Then arrest me after you find the children. I'll be at the same address I've been at for 15 years. I'm not hiding anymore, detective. Chin studied him for a long moment. Then she opened the folder and started reading. Jack turned to leave. Chan, she called after him. Why no? You've ignored missing kids before. Never cross this line. Jack paused at the door. Because one of them asked me for help. And I said yes. The next morning, Jack did something unprecedented. He walked into Children's Memorial Hospital, where Emma Rodriguez's mother sat alone in the chapel, praying to a God who seemed to have stopped listening. He walked into the Oakwood Community Center, where Lucas Bennett's father had organized a search party that had found nothing. He walked into Maya Foster's small apartment in Westmont, where her grandmother couldn't stop crying. To each one, he made the same promise. I will bring them back. Every one of them. No payment. No favors. No conditions. Emma's mother stared at him with hollow eyes. You're Jack Chan. You're a criminal. Yes. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only one paying attention. Lucas's father grabbed his shirt. If you're lying to me, if you're using my son's disappearance for some kind of PR, then kill me yourself, Jack said quietly. I'll hand you the gun. Maya's grandmother just wept and asked, Can you really find her? I'm going to try. Parents didn't know whether to trust him or fear him. But desperation makes believers of everyone. And by sunset, 3 grieving families had placed their hope in the last person they ever thought would offer it. The most feared man in the city had just declared war on the monsters no one else would fight. And there was no turning back. By noon, the story had exploded across every news channel in the city. Mafia boss declares war on child trafficking ring, screamed the headline on Channel 7. Footage of Jack walking into the Rodriguez home played on loop, his face unmistakable, his reputation preceding every frame. The city split down the middle. Talk radio hosts debated whether Jack Chan was a vigilante hero or a criminal exploiting tragedy for PR. Social media erupted with hashtags, hashtag Jack Chan Savior and hashtag criminals aren't heroes trending simultaneously. Parents in working-class neighborhoods praised him. Civic leaders condemned him. Police Commissioner Davis held a press conference at 2 p.m., his face tight with barely controlled anger. Criminals don't become heroes by choosing which laws to break. Jack Chan is a known organized crime figure, and any involvement in this investigation will be treated as obstruction of justice. But behind closed doors, Detective Chin sat in a windowless room with a secret task force, spreading Jack's intelligence across a conference table. Names, locations, patterns, connections. Everything the police hadn't found in 3 days, handed to them by the one person they'd spent years trying to arrest. If we use this, Captain Morrison said, and it comes out where it came from. Then we find the children first and worry about optics later, Chen interrupted. That same afternoon, in a private club where daylight never reached, the city's crime families held an emergency meeting. Vincent Moretti sat at the head of the table, flanked by the Castellano brothers and representatives from the East Side crews. They'd called Jack here to explain himself, to justify why he'd brought federal heat down on all of them. You're making us all targets, Moretti said, his voice cold and measured. Children were always off limits. That was the code. We don't touch them, we don't profit from them, and we sure as hell don't declare war on the people who do. You're breaking that code by getting involved. Jack stood alone at the opposite end of the table. The code broke when they started hunting kids in our neighborhoods. This isn't our war, Chan. Then stay out of my way. Moretti leaned forward. You think you're some kind of hero now? You think protecting one little girl erases 20 years of what you've done? No, Jack said quietly. But it might save 3 who are running out of time. The Castellano brothers exchanged glances. A few men shifted uncomfortably. Moretti's jaw tightened. When the feds come for you, Moretti said, don't expect us to cover for you. Jack turned to leave. I never did. At Westfield Elementary, Stella sat alone during recess. The other children didn't know what to do with her anymore. Some watched her with awe, like she'd survived something impossible. Others kept their distance, like she carried danger in her backpack. The playground felt bigger and lonelier than it ever had before. Ms. Reeves found her sitting under the oak tree, drawing in her notebook. Stella, can we talk for a minute? Stella looked up but didn't answer. I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Do you feel safe with Mr. Chan? I feel safe because of Mr. Chan, Stella said simply. No one else paid attention. Ms. Reeves hesitated. But you understand he's not a good person, right? He does bad things. He helped me when everyone else said I was lying. Ms. Reeves had no response to that. That evening, Amanda opened her door to find a woman from Child Protective Services standing in the hallway with a clipboard and concerned expression. Ms. Martinez, we've received reports about your daughter's association with Jack Chan. We need to ask you some questions. Amanda let her in because refusing would only make things worse. The social worker sat on their threadbare couch and asked about Jack's involvement, his contact with Stella, whether Amanda felt pressured or threatened. Through the thin walls, Amanda could hear her neighbors gossiping. She's letting a criminal walk her daughter to school? What kind of mother? I heard he paid her rent. She probably. Amanda closed her eyes. Later, after the social worker left with her notes and judgments, Amanda called her sister Elena. They're trying to make me choose, Amanda said, voice breaking, between accepting help from a criminal or protecting my daughter alone. What are you going to do? Amanda looked at Stella, sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. No nightmares. No fear. I know what he is, Amanda whispered. But he's the only one who listened when everyone else looked away. At 11 p.m., Marcus burst into Jack's office. We found Tyler Reed. Surveillance tracked him to a warehouse in the industrial district. Jack was already moving. How many men? I sent 6. They're moving in now. But when Jack's men breached the warehouse, it was empty. No Tyler Reed. No trafficking operation. Just bare concrete and shadows. And in the center of the room, a small pink backpack. Inside, a class photo from Westfield Elementary. Every child's face marked with an X except one. Stella's face was circled in red. On the wall behind it, spray-painted in letters 3 feet high. You can't protect them all. Marcus called Jack immediately. Boss, it was a trap. They're not running. They're baiting us. Jack stared out his window at the city lights, at the neighborhoods where children slept unaware of the monsters hunting them. Then we take the bait, he said. And we finish this. Jack realized that night what he was really fighting. Not scattered predators hunting alone. An organized network with infrastructure, connections, protection. The kind of operation that required expertise he didn't have. So he made a call he never thought he'd make. Rebecca Torres arrived at his office at 2 a.m. Former FBI agent, 15 years in the Crimes Against Children unit. Now a private investigator who specialized in cases the Bureau had given up on. She'd lost her own daughter to traffickers 8 years ago. Never found her. Never stopped looking. She studied Jack across his desk with the kind of eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. You want to fight them, she said. You need to think like them. They're sophisticated, encrypted messaging, offshore accounts, fake businesses as fronts. This isn't street-level crime. I have resources the FBI doesn't, Jack said. And I'm not limited by warrants. That makes you dangerous. To them and yourself. Then we'll be dangerous together. Torres opened her laptop. Show me what you have. Over the next 12 hours, They mapped the network. Torres's expertise in trafficking operations. Jack's street intelligence. Marcus's surveillance reports. Together, they saw the pattern. Safe Harbor Youth Services, Torres said, tapping a company profile. Fake charity. Been operating for 6 years. They identify vulnerable children through school programs, community outreach, social services referrals. Jack studied the organizational chart. How do they choose targets? Single-parent households. Night shift workers. Kids who walk alone. They groom them slowly. Friendly faces. Small gifts. Building trust. Then they wait for the perfect moment. Marcus pointed to a list of names. These are the social workers connected to Safe Harbor. 3 of them work for the city. Corrupt or complicit? Jack asked. Both. They feed information. Which families are struggling? Which kids have absent parents? They're paid informants inside the system designed to protect children. Torres pulled up a map. The 3 missing children weren't random. Emma, Lucas, Maya, all referred to Safe Harbor within the last 6 months. All flagged as high-priority targets. Where are they now? If they follow standard trafficking routes, they're being held at a processing facility before transport. Probably near the harbor. There's a ship scheduled to depart in 48 hours. Jack's hands curled into fists. We have 2 days. Across town, Detective Chin spread the same intelligence across her task force's conference table. They'd been working parallel to Jack, following his leads, connecting the same dots. But Chin had reached the same conclusion Torres had. They needed to move faster than proper procedure allowed. Captain Morrison looked at the evidence and shook his head. This implicates city officials. We need warrants, proper chains of custody. 3 children don't have time for proper procedure, Chin interrupted. Detective. I'm going to work with Jack Chan unofficially. He provides ground intelligence, I provide legal cover. It's the only way we find them in time. You're playing with fire. Then I'll burn. But those kids won't. Morrison stared at her for a long moment. Then he closed the file. I didn't hear that. And if this goes sideways, I never saw this evidence. Chin nodded. It was the closest thing to permission she'd get. That afternoon, Marcus found Jack alone in his office, staring at a photograph he kept hidden in his desk drawer. A girl. 14 years old. Dark hair. His sister's smile. Boss, Marcus said quietly. This isn't about your sister. Jack didn't look up. She was 16 when they took her. I was 14. We were at the park. I went to get ice cream. When I came back, she was gone. I know. They never found her. No body. No leads. Nothing. Just gone. Marcus had known Jack for 20 years. Had never heard him talk about this. That's why you build all this, Marcus said, gesturing at the office, the empire. To gain power so you'd never be helpless again. But power didn't bring her back. Jack finally looked up. Every year I got stronger, she stayed gone. I built an empire and I couldn't save the one person who mattered. This isn't about her, boss. You can't save her by saving them. No, Jack agreed. But it's about every sister. Every daughter. Every child someone failed to protect. Including me. The break came at sunset. One of Jack's informants spotted Tyler Reed at a container yard near the port. Marcus's surveillance team moved in, keeping distance, capturing everything. Reed met with a man in an expensive suit. Silver hair. Confidence stride. The kind of man who belonged on charity galas and city council meetings. Torres pulled up his photo in seconds. Victor Crane. Prominent businessman. Philanthropist. Runs Safe Harbor Youth Services. He's untouchable, connected to politicians, praised in newspapers, donates millions to police charities. He's been hiding in plain sight, Jack said. For years. And no one looked twice because he's exactly who you'd never suspect. That night, an unlikely team assembled in Jack's office. Jack. Marcus. Torres. And Detective Chin, who'd arrived with her badge in one pocket and a service weapon in the other. Intel suggests the children are being held at a processing facility near Pier 7, Torres said. They'll be moved onto a container ship in 48 hours. Once they're on international waters, we'll never find them. Chin studied the blueprints. This is the only chance we have. We move tonight. If we're wrong, Chin said to Jack, I lose my badge and you go to prison. Jack looked at the photographs of Emma, Lucas, and Maya. 3 faces that had become his responsibility. If we're right and do nothing, he said, 3 children disappear forever. I'll take those odds. Marcus checked his weapon. Then we move at midnight. Full tactical. No mistakes. Torres nodded. No mistakes. Chin holstered her weapon. Let's bring them home. Midnight came to Pier 7 with fog rolling off the harbor and the smell of salt and rust heavy in the air. Jack's team approached from the south, 6 men moving through shadows like ghosts. Chen's backup held position at the perimeter, badges hidden, weapons ready. Torres coordinated from a surveillance van 2 blocks away. The warehouse loomed ahead, corrugated metal and broken windows, the kind of building the city had forgotten existed. Marcus signaled. 2 guards at the entrance. Jack's men moved. 30 seconds later, both guards were unconscious, zip-tied, and the door swung open on silent hinges. Inside, the warehouse stretched into darkness. Shipping containers stacked 3 high. The sound of water dripping somewhere. And in the center of the space, under a single bare bulb, a shipping container with its door slightly ajar. Jack moved toward it, Marcus covering his flank. When they pulled the door open, 3 small faces looked up at them from the darkness. Emma Rodriguez. Lucas Bennett. Maya Foster. Terrified. Alive. We're here to take you home, Jack whispered. Then the lights blazed on. Every bulb in the warehouse igniting at once, turning night into artificial day. Victor Crane stepped out from behind a container, flanked by 12 armed men. Did you really think, Crane said with a smile, that I wouldn't know you were coming? The fight was brutal and fast. Jack's crew was outnumbered 2-1, but they fought like men who had everything to lose. Gunfire echoed off metal walls. Torres called Chin. Now. We need backup now. Jack fought through Crane's security, taking hits, delivering worse. Beside him, Marcus shielded Emma with his body as bullets tore through the air. The impact spun Marcus sideways. He went down, blood spreading across his chest. Marcus! Jack roared. Get the kids, Marcus gasped. I'm fine. Get them out. Jack grabbed Emma, pulled her toward cover. One of Torres's contacts, a medic, materialized from the chaos and dragged Marcus to safety. Jack fought his way through. Past Reed, who Chen's team tackled to the ground. Past the hired security who broke and ran when they realized they were outmatched. Until he reached Victor Crane, who stood alone now, expensive suit stained with someone else's blood, smile finally gone. Jack's gun came up, pressed against Crane's forehead. You think you're saving them? Crane spat. You're just another criminal playing hero. The difference is I know what I am, Jack said, finger tightening on the trigger. You're the monster who pretends to be good. Everything in him wanted to pull the trigger. 20 years of rage. His sister's face. 3 children who'd been hunted like prey. Behind him, Emma whimpered. Lucas was crying. Maya watched with wide eyes. Torres's voice crackled in his earpiece. Don't do it. Don't become what you're fighting. And in his head, Stella's voice from that first morning. Are you going to hurt them? Jack's hand trembled. The gun pressed harder against Crane's skull. Then slowly, Jack lowered the weapon. You'll stand trial, he said. Every parent in the city will know your face. Police swarmed in at exactly the right moment. Chin had timed it perfectly. Sirens and badges and handcuffs. Victor Crane, Tyler Reed, Derek Voss, and 12 others vanished into custody. Evidence seized, computers, files, client lists that would dismantle the entire network. Emma ran into her mother's arms. Lucas's father collapsed to his knees, sobbing. Maya's grandmother held her granddaughter and wouldn't let go. In the ambulance, Marcus looked up at Jack through pain medication haze. Never thought I'd take a bullet for someone else's kid. Jack gripped his hand. Neither did I. But here we are. By morning, the story dominated every channel. Mafia boss rescues 3 kidnapped children. Footage of the rescue played on loop. Jack's face. The children being carried out. Parents weeping with relief. The city couldn't decide what he was. Criminal or hero? Emma's mother spoke to reporters outside the hospital. He gave us our babies back when everyone else gave up. Lucas's father. I don't care what he's done. He saved my son. Maya's grandmother. He's an answer to prayer, whatever else he might be. But victory came with a price. Federal authorities announced an investigation into Jack's methods. His criminal empire, exposed during the rescue operation, became evidence in a dozen pending cases. The life he'd built for 20 years was crumbling. Vincent Moretti called that afternoon, voice cold with fury. You've brought the feds down on all of us. Every family. Every operation. There will be consequences, Sean. Then come collect, Jack said, and hung up. 3 days later, Stella appeared at the hospital with Amanda. She carried a folder of drawings, crayon sketches of the rescue she'd seen on television. One showed Marcus as a superhero, cape and all, shield raised to protect children. Marcus, still recovering, took the drawing with his good hand. His eyes got suspiciously bright. That's me, he asked. Stella nodded seriously. You saved them. Like Mr. Jack saved me. After Stella and Amanda left, Marcus stared at the drawing for a long time. Never thought I'd take a bullet for someone else's kid, he said again. Jack looked out the hospital window at the same city that couldn't decide if he was a villain or a hero, the same city where children could finally walk to school without fear. Neither did I, he said quietly. But here we are. 1 month later, Stella walked to school without fear. Amanda walked beside her sometimes, but not because she had to. Because she wanted to. Amanda had a new job now, better hours, better pay, funded by an anonymous donation that had established a childcare program at the hospital where she worked. Marcus, fully recovered, ran security for a community center Jack had established 3 weeks before his arrest. Emma, Lucas, and Maya came there twice a week for therapy and art classes. Slowly, carefully, they were learning to be children again. But Jack Chan faced a different future. The federal investigation had intensified. RICO charges. Money laundering. Racketeering. 20 years of criminal activity laid bare in court filings that painted him as exactly what he was, a crime boss who'd built an empire on the edges of the law. Detective Chin visited him the week before trial. I'll testify about your cooperation. It might help. Don't, Jack said. You've got a career to protect. Chan. I knew what I was doing, detective. I knew the cost. Torres came too, bringing coffee and questions. Why did you do it? You knew this would destroy everything you built. Jack looked out the window at the city he'd controlled for 2 decades. Because some things matter more than power. Something unexpected happened as the trial date approached. The community mobilized. Parents gathered outside the courthouse, hundreds of them, holding signs. Jack Chan saved our children when no one else would. Teachers and social workers joined them. Even some off-duty police officers stood in the crowd, faces covered but voices loud. A petition circulated online, demanding leniency. 50,000 signatures in 3 days. Emma's mother gave an interview that went viral. I don't care what he's done. He gave me my daughter back when the system failed us. The city remained divided, but it could no longer ignore what Jack had done or why it mattered. Judge Margaret Holloway faced an unprecedented situation. Jack pleaded guilty to multiple charges. His attorney presented the cooperation agreements, the testimony about the trafficking network, the children's lives saved. The prosecutor argued for life in prison. Criminal conduct doesn't become heroic because we approve of the outcome. The defense presented 50,000 signatures and a courtroom packed with parents whose children were alive because of Jack Chan. Judge Holloway took 3 days to decide. "You are guilty of serious crimes," she said finally. "Crimes that normally warrant the maximum sentence. But you also demonstrated that even those who operate outside the law can choose to protect the most vulnerable among us." Her gavel fell. 7 years. Eligible for parole in 4. The courtroom erupted. Some shouted it was too lenient. Others wept that it was unjust. The truth lived somewhere in between. The morning before Jack reported to federal prison, Stella waited outside his building with Amanda. She held a folder of drawings and wore the backpack that used to terrify her every morning. Jack stepped outside and found them there. "Will you walk me to school?" Stella asked. One more time. Jack knelt, bringing himself eye level with her one last time. "I'd be honored, Stella." They walked together down Fletcher Street. But this time, something was different. Neighbors lined the sidewalk. Not hiding behind curtains. Not watching in fear. Standing openly. Mr. Rosario from the bakery. Mrs. Chan from the corner store. Miguel from the auto shop. Parents whose children now walked safely to school. Some applauded. Others nodded silently. A few wiped away tears. At the school gates, Stella turned and hugged him fiercely. "Thank you for paying attention when no one else did." Jack's voice was rough when he answered. "Thank you for being brave enough to ask." She ran inside, backpack bouncing, disappearing into a future he'd helped make possible. Victor Crane's trial revealed what Jack and Torres had suspected. The network reached into government, police departments, social services. 14 officials arrested. Complete reform of child protection services mandated by the state. They called it Stella's Law, mandatory investigation of repeated child complaints. The kind of law that would have saved Stella if it had existed 6 weeks earlier. Jack's community center became a model for at-risk youth programs across the state. Marcus ran it with the same precision he'd once used running Jack's criminal operations. In federal prison, Jack received letters. Dozens every week. Parents thanking him. Children sending drawings. Emma's latest showed all 4 of them, her, Lucas, Maya, and Stella, playing on a playground with "safe" written in crayon above their heads. Stella's newest drawing arrived last week. It showed her walking to school, holding hands with Jack on one side, a police officer on the other, her mother behind them. The caption read, "Sometimes bad people do good things and good people do nothing. Thank you for doing something." The city was on its knees. Not from violence or fear or the chaos of criminal wars, but from the weight of realizing how many children they'd failed to protect. From the uncomfortable truth that sometimes salvation comes from the most unlikely places. Jack Chan wasn't a hero. He'd never be one. His crimes were real, his methods illegal, his past unforgivable. But for 7 children and their families, he was something more important. He was someone who paid attention when everyone else looked away. And in a world that too often fails its most vulnerable, sometimes that's all it takes to change everything.